because you never know what somebody might say. I can always edit out the naughty stuff. So feel free to say whatever you want. No holds barred. Right. So since we have a combination, let's see, we actually have Don, who's a regular, George is a regular. Actually, most of you guys except for Vince. And Phil, you're a regular too, right? Don't you show up to those Thursday meetings? Phil's frozen. Oh, no, there.
Yeah, sorry. I guess my computer is.
Oh, we have Tom too. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, man. Oh yeah, David Borkman had a thought in terms of here's the thing. So there's no format for this. It's just whatever you feel is something that you would like to share or offer as ideas, anything to keep the juice flowing, the current running through the rails. DC, yes, flag me, baby.
I just want to say congratulations to Don on his new article in Model Railroader.
Oh,
Thank you.
you got your copy already?
Yeah, it came 2 days ago.
I haven't even got mine yet. So.
Me neither.
Well, Don's, I think, the most prolific author I've run into. When I look at his list of articles and publications and everything, it's wow.
Right. Right. So with that, yeah, David was suggesting that, I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but he suggested doing something around car loads. And I thought, you know what, although we did that, it was fascinating to me to look at how a lot of things would have been transported. I mean, obviously there's things in either crates, sacks, or barrels, and then maybe bales. But depending upon how specific you want to get, I'm actually looking into what things were packed in what kinds of containers. So there's probably 2 or 3 different size barrels, there's different crates. And so what I'm going to do is see if I can categorize products that were shipped, how they were shipped, and then what kinds of capacities or loads. And then just share it with you guys. So if anybody wants to partner with me on that project, let me know, and we can do a little brain trust around how that might be modeled. That was one thought. Anybody else have anything you want to suggest or offer?
Are you talking about for today?
Yeah.
Doing that today?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No.
Okay.
No. I would do that offline with whoever. For today, it's, this is your time. So whatever you want to ask or rant about. But if it's a rant, you got 30 seconds and then we got to move on.
We had, a few weeks ago or something like that, a talk about George Abdel's book.
Yeah.
See if I can get it in there.
Yeah.
Is that the one that everybody was talking about?
Well, it depends. There's 2 or 3 editions of that book.
Okay. Yeah, this one's from 1961.
That would be that would be an original edition.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was pretty expensive. It cost me $19 with shipping.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah, that's what I figured too.
Yeah, it's a great source, great reference.
It was on the HO swap group. Yeah, good pricing, so that's why I took it.
Yeah, it's been my Bible in the early days.
Yeah.
Are there any other books of that nature out there?
Of that nature, like with showing period photos of that era?
Exactly.
There are any number of books. And if you're getting into modeling the Civil War, Abdul and Alexander's book are the best ones to, I think most of us started with those. But there's books on George Bernard Shaw's.
George Bernard Shaw, the poet.
No. What's his name? Bernard.
George Bernard. Yeah.
George Bernard. Thank you. Mouth kept going. And it doesn't cover just railroads, but there's some railroad stuff in there. There's the pictorial history of the Civil War. There's a album out there, multi-volume album of photographic history of the Civil War, which covers a lot more than just railroads. There's a lot of books of photographs. The best place I found for just general photographs of the Civil War is, I think anybody in this group could easily access it, is the online records of the Library of Congress. And
What about, I'm sorry, what about the book B&O Power? Does it have any, from specifically the Baltimore, Ohio Railroad? Is it worth getting?
I've got it. So I think it's the steam, and I can't remember if it goes up to 1930, but it's got some good stuff on the early railroads, B&O Motive Power.
There's a book that was written, I think, called The B&O and the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't have as many. That's not really photographic.
Are you looking for, you're looking for photographic stuff, Roger?
Yeah, well, yes, that's what I asked about initially. But yes, I'm familiar with the B&O's history on a couple of books from that time period, for that time period.
Yep. Yeah, I was buying books just for photographs, and there's one called The Blue and Gray. It's it's like a portrait, similar size of the Abdul book, and that had some pretty good photos. There's one in there of which I bought it for, was it showed troop trains in Harper's Ferry, because I was actually considering, wow, Harper's Ferry, it's such a cool line, and there's so much that you can model in there. And then when I saw these trains with troops and supplies, it got the juices flowing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I was just looking for.
I'm sorry,
Walter?
Hey, one thing I was just looking for. I can't find. There's a really cool picture of a barrel car, which looks kind of like a modern center beam car, and just barrels were just stacked up on the sides of it. I don't know when it was. I can't find my photo. Has anybody seen? Because you talk about loads, to have a barrel loading car that you just sort of stack them up, leaning slightly in. Has anyone seen that?
Are they stacked top to bottom or horizontally?
Top to bottom. They're stacked vertically all along the sides. And
Really?
It could be more 1880s kind of a thing.
I'll
try to look at the photo later, but
yeah.
anyone who's seen, I've only seen one picture of that car.
So since we're talking about that, I'm just going to ask, does anyone know the size? And I can easily look it up, but I thought since we're in a conversation, what's the size of a hogshead? Because they reference that a lot, like they were, whatever it was, salt pork, they were, packed in hogshead size barrels.
What are they?
Hogshead.
Oh, hardtack?
No, hogshead.
I don't know what it is.
The head of a pig.
So it'd be more like the size of a keg than a barrel. I presume.
Size of a what top?
HOGSHEAD, hogshead.
Yeah, but you said it would be more the size of something rather than a barrel.
Pig.
I didn't hear the something.
KEG, keg.
No, kegs are smaller, hogsheads are bigger.
A hogshead's 48 inches tall and 30 inches in circumference.
Wow.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
So wait, so why would they call it a hogshead? To George's point, a hogshead is not that big.
Oh yeah, they can be real big.
What? That big? 38 inches by 40 some inches? My God, that's like must have run into some radioactive stuff somewhere.
I guess it's for the whole hog except for the head.
Oh, wow. Hogshead.
Yeah, you know how they count cattle as heads of cattle. So perhaps it is the entire animal.
Okay. So,
A hogshead was used in British and American colonial times to transport and store tobacco. It was a very large wooden barrel. The standardized hogshead measured 48 inches long and 30 inches in diameter. Oh, I'm sorry, at the head. At least, oh, it's getting into it. Yeah, but they were used to transport
tobacco.
tobacco. And then a lot of the stuff, this was English, is measurements are in liters.
But they don't say like how they coined the phrase hogshead.
To be found in the name for a cask or liquid measure appearing in various forms in Germanic languages. In Dutch, it's oxhoofd. Danish, oxhoofd.
But still, I mean, is it with like to I think David's point or somebody said maybe it's the size of the hog without the head. That's why they called it. They should have called it the hog headless casket.
Hogs can be a lot bigger than you really anticipate.
I get that, but still, how do they name that based on the hog? Is it hog's head? You know, it's like, why?
And don't say that here.
Interesting.
You
Call
could
a keg.
What's that?
5 to 48 gallons of, it could hold 45 to 48 gallons of Madeira wine.
Okay. Huh. All right.
Very popular.
One of the things on grades of barrels also is when you have something for wine or whatever, especially making, you have to have liquid under pressure and be able to seal it. But they could also use it for eggs and nails and stuff like that. You didn't have to have that kind of quality on a fit. So it could also refer to how fine it is that way.
In very early times, the barrel was kind of cool because it wasn't transported in wagons and carts. You would move your commodity by turning it on its side and rolling it.
Right. Yeah, that's when I realized all the platforms that I built on my layout, all of them needed ramps because that's how they would have got the kegs up onto the deck. Because I was thinking maybe I need to put up a winch or something. No. There's one more thing to do on my layout that I haven't done.
That wouldn't be too hard to do in Chattanooga, though, Tom.
No. No. Fortunately, there's enough space on the platform ends where I can install those. I did one in Atlanta. I just got about 8 more to do over the course of the whole line.
Hey, Tom, I'm looking at the image you have behind you on your
Yeah.
screen, and it's two engines, pilot to pilot.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering to myself, would those drawbars ever be connected for one engine to tow another? Does anybody know anything about that? If that was ever done?
DC, I would seriously doubt that you could connect two drawbars like this because there's no place to drop a pin. You don't have any housing to hold the pin that you
Yeah, but-
normally put with a link. Yeah,
But you
that's
could
what,
theoretically have a, like you're doing, like a C that
yeah.
you drop the pin through, put the one drawbar in from this side, one overlapping one from that side. That kind of holds them together with the pin protruding. And I was just wondering if it might have ever been done. Let's say you had a disabled engine out on the road.
I don't know that
I
I'd
think you
ever
need a
think ever
special
done.
drawbar or chain or something like that. If you look at the drawbar on a locomotive pilot, it hangs down and
Yeah.
is no longer than the pilot itself. So there's no way to connect to two pilot links to connect two locomotives together.
I would imagine they would have had to do it at some point, but they would have had to fabricate something or have maybe chains together to pull the locomotives. Because, I mean, you think of railroading, they're going to have to do something at some point. If you and I can imagine it, they had to do it.
If you look at switcher locomotives, they all had a special coupler pocket on the pilot of the switcher locomotive where you could hook links.
I think, yeah, David, I think there's a photo of Atlanta where it shows a switching engine and there's no pilot. It's just a heavy end beam. And this way the pilot would not get in the way of anything that you wanted to do. So I think to DC's point around how they might have rescued a stranded locomotive, they might have taken an engine out without the pilot on it so that it could, if it needed to, it could just connect right onto the drawbar. That would make sense.
Well, you also have the picture of the Rapidan towing the Chase Minot and the Union. That gives a relatively decent side view that if you can get a zoomed in picture like on the LOC site, you might be able to get some, an idea of how it was actually done.
Where's that photo at?
Library of Congress.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hmm.
The Rapidan is a 460.
let's see. Speaking about loads, does anybody know if, like, when they would harvest hay or what have you, like that, or would that have been baled or just stacked into a flat car?
Baled.
They would have baled back then? Okay.
Yeah,
You look at some of the photos of U.S. military railroad cars. They had bales of hay.
Oh yeah, that one of Manassas, right, right. How do you think they might, well, let me see. And then you had, I think it was the Texas that was run up to Virginia to that place called Saltville. My guess is they would have transported that in barrels.
I'm pretty sure.
They could have done it that way or just loose in a boxcar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like
Railroads would be more likely though.
like board up where the openings for the doors were, and just load it that way, shovel it in, shovel it out.
I think barrels or sacks would be more.
Yeah. How about sand? I'm always curious, like where they would have, I guess they would have had to transport sand from the coast for the sand domes?
You can get sand at almost any, well, around here, any stream.
Yeah,
You
it's the
can go
same
through,
everywhere.
get sand and, some of the banks, and you just put it through a sieve and you get sand that would work. What were you saying, Don?
I'd say you get sand just about anywhere, I think, from stream
Say a
bed.
lot of, my father worked for Knoxville Sand and Gravel. They dredged the river to get sand.
Ah, and that would have been transported in the ways we've been talking about. They might have been just throwing them in sacks or barrels or just loose on a flat car. And maybe
loose on a flat car that had the gondola type edge and then just canvas over the top or something like that to keep, because they weren't traveling that fast that really the wind would lose that much.
Right. Yeah, because that's one of the things I want to model is some kind of sand activity, since it was so needed in the domes. Because we've got the wood ricks and we've got the water towers, and sand was the other element that would have been a prerequisite. So there's got to be a sand facility that I got to put in Atlanta or someplace, and maybe Chattanooga.
I wonder if they maybe used buckets to load the sand domes.
Yeah, that's what LeBron did. He made a platform, and he has a little crane, and buckets would have been, or they would have been handed up, and they just filled.
Usually if it's got the crane though, it has a very large.
It has a what, Tom?
A large, big bucket for, because they can fill that up with a shovel, just a crane to bring it over and up in.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that with all the, good, Don?
The opening in the sand dome was only about this big around. So it can't have been too big of a bucket.
Gondolas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Manual labor was relatively cheap too back then.
Yeah.
What was I going to say about sand? Dome.
I wonder if the firemen loaded it or who would be responsible for loading it.
Some lackey on the crew.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, didn't they still have hostlers back then? So they probably would have had to have somebody there at the engine facility would load it up before they'd head out. Because the terminals weren't that far apart, were they?
The terminals? What do you mean?
Well, like, for example, you go from rail yard to rail yard. They couldn't have been that far apart in those days because we as people weren't very mobile at that point. So traveling, 100 miles or something like that was probably a day's work in that time. So they probably had yard terminals or whatever, say 35, 45 miles apart. And then so traveling between them, they would have hostlers in between there that may do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's it. Don?
I was just going to say, generally, there was a wiper, usually a teenager, at an entry-level job. He would see that everything was greased in the morning, the brass was polished, the whole business, including the sand dome being filled. That would be his job. To have that all done before the engineer came to work.
So I'm wondering, since there's no real photos of that, you see photos of water tanks, and you see photos of wood ricks, but you don't see any photos that show sand. I'm wondering if those might have been relegated to the like the roundhouse, since we don't really have any interior images. If there would have been like a particular track or what have you.
I would think loading sand, I don't know, first of all, but I think loading sand domes would be an activity you would want to do outside because it's going to be messy. You're going to have a lot of spillage over time.
I was thinking, I know there were a lot of water tanks and wood racks and all that along the line because of constantly having to refill. What about sand? Would it hold enough to make it from Atlanta to Chattanooga, or would you have to replenish that along the way?
Great question.
I would think it depends on the grade. Because if they're using more sand on grades, then that's where they would need more sand. So they probably plan ahead.
Yeah, like Big Shanty. I think it was originally called. They referred to it as. It was something like the shanties on the big grade or something like that. So evidently,
Shanties,
what was it, Don?
the big grade to the shanties.
Right. So from Atlanta up, I think, right?
But yeah, but the big thing though with the WNA, the maximum grade was 0.5%. So a big grade wasn't very much. Didn't use much sand.
Maybe they meant big by long.
You figure a pile, you could do a pile of sand and a shovel and buckets behind the wood rack.
Possibly.
And besides grade, another problem I heard is in modern, I talked to a UP guy who said when they have a lot of forest, that just leaves and so on a rail, when it's wet with leaves, that it makes it sloppy stuff, and they have trouble with that too.
Right. Right.
That's an interesting, I hadn't thought about that before.
There is a video, I think it's on YouTube, of the Three River Traveler. That's excursion line they run in Knoxville. And there's a video on that they did during the fall, running it and showing the wheels slipping on the leaves with it falling off the trees and onto the track and all that, talking about having to apply extra sands. That is a steam. That is a steam locomotive.
Yeah.
Well, when y'all come out here, when you
George?
come out here in the fall,
George,
when y'all mountains.
What was that, George?
I was saying you come out here in the fall and ride the Durango and Silverton when the leaves are falling. You see a lot of those leaves all over the track all the time. So it's a real common thing here, and they usually are trying to do everything to keep from slipping.
Hey, George, are you going to incorporate that into the new tsunami?
Actually, function 19, it's already there.
It's already there? Function 19.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Function 19 has sand coming out of the dome?
No, function 19 is wheel slip. Function 21 is sanders.
Oh
wow.
my God.
Know that, Tom?
No, man. I have it installed. No, Jesus. Okay. Wow. 19, and what was the sand? 21?
Mhm.
I love it, George.
Now, I'll tell you this.
I thought I was going to pull your leg or something.
No, but I tell you this, we talk about it because, you know, we're purists to a certain extent. And when we were playing with that feature, we were thinking that maybe we would goose the motor and actually break the wheels loose to match the motion. But then we remembered things like traction tires and stuff like that and probably decided that wasn't a good idea. So it's just a sound effect.
Wow. Wow.
He thought he was going to pull one over on George, and George's already ahead of him.
Man, that little boy, you guys have thought of everything. God, I'm trying to think of what we would need that's not in there, but I don't think there is anything. Man.
The only thing I can think of, honestly, that I would like to add, but I don't know what it would sound like, is a water pump.
Oh.
The actual water pump sound. I don't know if this would make much of a sound, but you know, this is the one on the crossheads.
Wow. Is that one of the ones you're going to be installing?
Yeah, I've actually, while I've been listening, I've been masking for the last round of paint I'm hoping to shoot today. But
Now,
I've got a cab,
oh, sweet.
so you guys can see it.
Is that the general cab?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm just doing one of them right now, just to get a feel for it and get an article, get the presentation put together. But then the others I'll just do at a little bit more leisure.
Now, that piping you just showed us, is that one piece or is that multiple?
No, this is just one piece. This was
Front-
3D printed. This was one of the 3D printed ones. I think it was Jerry's web page that I got these from, but there's two of them. They come together, and this one's already painted in the brass color.
Wow. Okay.
CalScale makes a similar part.
Who does?
Okay.
CalScale.
Yes, and that's what I used on my original Texas, and it was a brass that I had to bend because they come as a straight line, and then you have to bend it in that S. It was interesting.
Now, the ones I had were already bent, but whatever.
Maybe I
They're
ordered
already
the
built?
wrong ones then.
One thing your sand makes me think of also is, I know in modeling roads, I've seen things that say if you're modeling 1950s or so, you want to put oil spots near the stop signs because cars leaked more and therefore you'd have oil spots there. Well, are there going to be places on the track where, like getting started and so on, or maybe at the yard where there'd be more sand around, where it'd be more common to get things going?
Hmm.
Yes.
Anywhere the trains are starting, yeah.
Ooh, that's what I was going to ask, is what kind of deposits that you would see along the rails. So sand would be one in different places, just to either side of the rails. What else might you see on the tracks or between the rails?
Would
Great
the
stuff.
rails maybe be polished a little more where you'd be trying to gain the traction to start up in a situation like that?
Might be, but from a modeling standpoint, I wouldn't mess with the surface of the rails.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Phil?
I was saying you might see brake dust on a downhill grade, or on any grade, really.
Oil deposits? No.
No, because to speak to the sand you were talking about, it would be really where you were starting the trains if you were starting them on a grade. So like, say, for example, at Big Shanty, if that was the beginning of a grade, you would see probably a lot more there. But remember, as they're running, it's just like rain would just wash it away. So you wouldn't see big deposits of it.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, the sand coming off of an engine's just going to be a
But-
very small amount on the rail. So you're not going to have piles of sand or anything like that along the railway.
Most of the sand that comes out goes under the wheels and it gets crushed under the wheels. So you wouldn't really see sand, you'd see dust.
Most, yeah.
Okay.
I think the piles of sand that you see in modern photos are more connected to the fact that they've got DPUs, and the DPU might be trying to push and running the sand when it really shouldn't be, and that's why you end up with a pile of sand there. Maybe in the steam area you wouldn't see that so much.
So there would not be any kind of like oil droppings anywhere, right?
Well, you
Might
might
be.
see like oil that gets slung off of like connecting rods, and I would say you probably have a lot of oil droppings because you got the journal bearings on the freight cars.
You'd have,
These were open.
sorry, Phil.
No, go ahead.
You'd have streaks along either side of the rails.
Yeah.
Because the oil coming off the side rods, and you'd have streaks on the inside because of the valve gear.
Would that be primarily around the terminals, Don, or could that be anywhere?
Oh, that'd be all along the roadway.
Oh,
Would
cool.
we be talking about whale oil, or were they using petroleum, or I mean that might make a difference too, wouldn't it, or would it? I mean,
Well, you'd get some kind of stain because the tendency of everybody is to oil too much. And even if you just oil the right amount, it still gets thrown off. That's why you need to oil it again at the next stop.
So there'd probably be a lot of stains in the roundhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
I got a
But not
dirty.
not out on the line though. You wouldn't have puddles of oil or anything like that. You'd have a small droppings along the
Right.
way. You'd have to have a lot of droppings to be able to show anything.
Got it.
And that's what I was wondering with the type of oil they use. What would weather do maybe to a whale oil or something like that, as opposed to just regular petroleum based? I guess with the whale oil biodegrade better or something. I guess. What's the way?
So what oil was it? A whale-based oil that they'd be using for the gears and what have you on the locomotive? Anybody know?
Tallow,
Tallow. What's that from?
fat, basically.
All all the pork for the hogsheads. Beef.
You interested in seeing a picture of a small sand house?
Yes.
All right, let me show you something here. Where'd it go? There it is. This is out of Berg's Building and Structures, 1893. But the principles are the same thing. You've got this little shed with a bin of just raw sand outside. Inside, you've got a heater that dries out the sand and pot up and flow. So any little shed like this would be, this is like 14 by 16 feet.
Right.
And something like that, if you look at a picture, that could easily be overlooked. So that's all you'd really need. And then, of course, a few buckets and a ladder to get it up to the top of the engine.
Right.
So
That is cool. Can you send me that, Don?
do you have a copy of Berg's?
A copy of what?
Berg's Building and Structures?
I don't think so.
It's on Google. It's a Google file.
Okay.
And, let me get the title page out here. There it is.
Oh,
That's what it's called.
okay.
It's an 1893 book, but it goes back to the real basic stuff, which is what you'd be using in the
Building constructions.
In
Looking at,
addition to the bibliography.
yeah.
There you go, DC. Add that one.
Oh, so I've got more work to do now, Tom. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Okay. But looking at that picture kind of confirms that they'd be using buckets to fill those sand domes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could fill that one outside bin just off a flat car or whatever, but once it's in there, you'd be using buckets, and based on the size, sand was only used when it was absolutely necessary. So they wouldn't need as much sand as as water or wood. That was cool.
Also, another thing to model in coal along the tracks. One of the posters that freaked me out somewhat. It's much later, but if there's enough coal on the tracks for poor people to send their kids out, hey, get some coal to heat the house. I don't know if you want to do anything with that, but anyway, I got this poster up in a rail thing where there'd be people to, don't send your kids out there. So anyway.
With that somewhere. Picking up coal on the tracks.
What's that, Daryl?
I said I had read something about that somewhere.
You connect.
And I'll such as that. So obviously,
Your connection's weak. We didn't hear that.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the road, so anybody who says they can't make it to one of these things is fairly portable. I was saying that I had read, I've read examples of, or somewhere in some books I've read about people picking up coal off the track and all such as that. So apparently that was a
Fairly common. Yeah.
occurrence.
Well, here's an interesting fun fact for you. At the Durango and Silverton Railroad, they have a bin where you can buy a piece of coal. I think they sell it for like $2 or $3, and people take them home as souvenirs. But this is going along the line of what you see up the railroads. And you could walk up outside of the yard, walk up a block, and you'd find pieces of coal all up and down the line, because when they're shoveling, stuff falls off their shovel. And it's like, well, we're not going to stop and pick it up. So you could even say you could find pieces of wood along the line where maybe the guy maybe had it on his hand, or maybe it fell off the top of the tender shell.
Mm.
It has happened where you move one piece of wood to load in the wood stove, and a few more pieces move, maybe not where you wanted them to move to. That has happened. Or from the log pile outside to the wood stack inside. Yep.
Vince just shared with us a link to that book that Don was telling us about. So if you want to have that available to you, just pull it off the chat.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I didn't know it existed.
Don, why don't you just
So-
publish all the books that you have in a separate bibliography, and then we just got it.
Or maybe along the way, as people find things, we just add it to the list.
There you go. Yeah.
But
That's a
the PDF is there, and you can download it. It's a wonderful resource.
Yeah. Speaking of
When was that? Was
resources,
that period, or was that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Go ahead, Vince.
Was that period, or was that a recent publication? I didn't really read it yet.
1893.
Okay, it's not recent.
Been around
Well, I just was thinking about a copyright or something, but the PDF is up there. So if 1893, I'm pretty sure we're okay.
My grandchildren will swear that I was there when it was published. But
you were there when it was published? Okay.
I said my grandchildren would swear that I was.
Oh, little do they know. Have you ever heard of a guy named Eric Sloan? I think it's Eric Sloan. He's an artist that did period barns. He did bridges, and he's an excellent source if you're ever looking at period structures that you'd want to scratch build. Are you familiar with him, anybody? No? Wow. Okay. I'll send that one over to DC as well to add into the list. He did one book, I think, even on period tools.
Huh.
Brilliant artist. And I was just reading, Don had sent me everything he had on the WNA annual reports, and I was telling him the other day, last night actually, I was reading in September of '58 where the superintendent was doing his report, and he indicated that there was a lot of maintenance that was being done, and one of his items was ties, and he was saying that for whatever reason they've been getting different lengths, and they would just be laying them out as they got them. So it was an indication for me that it was definitely premeditated. It wasn't happenstance. It's just what they got. So if you're at all looking at doing any kind of handling, even if you do sectional track, you can always remove some ties and stick some longer pieces of wood or something under there just to give it that prototypical look. I thought that was great. And he also was talking about drainage and how there were some areas that were washed out and they started ballasting with stone. So I could imagine there'd be sections on a layout like mine, as an example, where I could actually put in stone, replicating that reference from that annual report. And I wouldn't have even thought about that. I just started to open one up and look at it. I even forget what the hell I was looking for, but it derailed me from whatever that was. And if you take the time to read these, it might only be one sentence in like pages of the report. And it's like, whoa, there's your gold dust right there. So I don't, let's,
Well, then, I think,
Listening to all this, Tom, I was thinking how maybe you might have the occasional wood piece now on the side of your, or detail on the side of your tracks, or where it's falling off.
yeah, there's actually a great shot of Alatuna Pass where you see ties just laying all over the place along there, because that was a wood mill. So I'm sure they were producing those, but it's interesting. There were some places where they were kind of stacked neatly and others where they're just laying alongside the tracks. So to your point, Daryl, those might have been the ones that were replaced, that were just left on the side, or they were being laid there to replace, who knows? But you're right. It's another scenic element you can add in there is, ties laid along the line.
And
Hey,
they still
Tom.
do that today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I was gonna say, back in 75, I did one some with Chicago Northwestern on the track gang. And they were either new ties that they took, unloaded from a flat car, and all they did was toss them to the side. Then you moved them to where they're needed, and you'd go down the line. And what we're doing, just periodically is throwing off ties, because they weren't going to replace every tie that actually needed replaced. But there were also, usually by the time a tie got removed and replaced, the tie was lucky if you got just two halves of the tie.
Right.
There were even more pieces than that. But yeah, new ties and old ties would be a great way.
Yep.
Before we get too far from tracks, I've got a few photos of the oil stains you see on tracks. If you'd like to see those.
Please.
Okay. Here's one. This is a diesel line, of course. You can see the stain running right down one side of it.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's from the gears in the
Wow.
traction motors.
Okay.
And that would
Yeah.
probably be true of any kind of loose commodity, because seeing that and thinking, there's a lot of zinc mines where I grew up in Jefferson County, Tennessee, a lot of open hopper loads, and you see that it looks like a dust, it's the ore, but you can see that when the trains start on the line between where the mines are and the yard, you see a lot of that dust scattered down in the,
Mm-hmm.
Here's
so,
another
if you were
shot.
hauling sand, or I guess any kind of loose load, a little bit scattered along the track.
Here's another shot. You can see streaks along either side.
Oh yeah, right in the ballast. Yep.
That's where you'd find them on a steam line. Plus you see another streak kind of down the center.
Right. Interesting.
And then I've got one left here. And again, here you see the streak running right down the center. So it's nothing really obvious. But, running greasy trains every day, you end up with grease everywhere.
Right. I love it. Man.
the amount of grease could also tell how used the line is.
Some of those are creosote stains too, the modern ones.
It makes me nervous. Just let me try.
So there's a lot of plausibility there.
The only thing I was wondering, when you're referencing the wood and the wood ties, one thing I had heard is that earlier, one of the really great advantages that they had in the war was a lot of fencing was just where you have the poles laid on top of each other at the angles. And so that was really easy to take apart for firewood. But I wonder, is any of that big enough if in an emergency situation, you could use them to put in it for ties?
Ooh, I don't think they were big enough. They were just split rails.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they were very small. I've built a few for the layout using compliments of Starbucks. They're wood stirrers.
What about corduroy roads?
Quarter what?
Corduroy.
Oh, corduroy.
Corduroy roads with the wood lines across or the lines of wood across the road for for muddy sections and all that. That might be big enough. Some of those section pieces might be big enough to take place of a tie or something. I don't know.
The corduroys were usually made from whatever timber was right there, and they would just cut them and lay them in raw timber. And there's a bunch of photos and illustrations about those. Actually, I wanted to model a corduroy road somewhere on the layout. I just haven't figured out where yet.
I was just thinking in terms of an emergency use, some of those might be big enough to throw in a tie too.
Don't know. Yep.
I think you might find a corduroy road more along a toll road. Because someone had to do the maintenance. And it costs money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll bite. What is a corduroy road?
Logs.
Oh,
Imagine
sorry?
logs stacked right along each other, next to each
Like-
other.
Okay,
Layer of dirt.
okay.
Just line the roads with wood through some of the muddier sections.
right.
Okay,
Awfully bumpy.
I would imagine.
Travelers did not like corduroy roads. If you were in a coach of some sort, because you'd go.
Weren't those mostly made for the purpose of transporting troops and whatnot? It wasn't a very common use civilian.
There was a lot of white traffic.
Corduroy roads go way back in history in pre-colonial days.
Okay.
Again, but they were pretty much on, there's a road going through my property and there's some muddy spots and low spots. I don't want to have to deal with fishing people and wagons out that, I've cut and laid timbers in there. And you have to pay me if you want to use that road to get to your destination.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Yes.
For taking a look at what's on the track. Okay, like the pictures Don was showing, most of that all diesel. Now, the American 440, where do we use them? Disneyland and World. So if you can look at their tracks when they're operating, videos and stuff, that'll show you what you can see.
Huh.
They're the same type of locomotives. And that's all that's on there. That's all.
Right. I'll have to take a ride to Disneyland. That'd be fun. Actually, we all kind of have our own little Disneylands.
I was just thinking, I was just thinking, I've been on the HL&L. Anyways, some of the 440 railroads they have back east here in the fall. And next time I go on one, I'm going to have to ask them if of their use of sand. Because the leaves were all over the last time I was there. I hadn't even thought about asking a question like that.
Right. Cool.
My wife and I have just about arrived at our destination, so I'm going to be getting off of here. There is my wife, who is making it possible for me to attend by doing the driving today.
Thank you.
Guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, Dal. Take care, buddy. That's great.
One of my favorite trackside things, back in early days before we had all the stuff we had, a lot of times if farmers noticed where a train would stop for a crew, for whatever, they would go out and plant on the railroad right-of-way crops that then, since it's on the right-of-way, they'd use it. And then in the wintertime, the train crew would leave buckets of coal out for people that did that for them. So it is a kind of exchange.
So they would leave like ears, like there'd be a cornfield along there and the guys would come off and pick whatever they wanted.
Yeah, because it would be planted on the right of way. So it was there, you know, it was there to take whenever they came to a stop.
I love it.
They had fresh food.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if they would have done that with their fuel wood. Maybe.
Roast some ears of corn in the firebox or whatever.
Roasted corn, absolutely. That's great.
Hey, the guys here think that those steam engines are incinerators for whatever they want to toss away. They just throw it in the firebox here, so.
Right. That's right. Yes, you can get rid of anything, including evidence of something that you don't want anybody to find.
I've heard some pretty interesting stories.
Oh man, that's great.
The one thing I think came later, back before when common land was everything's common unless it's yours, so cattle and so on could go anywhere, and if you want your cows protected, you had to fence it. And
Right.
then there's a great debate about how to do it. So when cattle would be out and railroads hit them, this is up in Chicago, so I don't know where else this manifested. But in the Chicago area, they started getting real bad reputation. Hey, they'll kill your cows. So the railroad would pay top dollar for your cows. Then what the farmer's response was is they'd put food out on the rails and get their sick cows up there. And so the train would hit their sick cows. They got full price for the cow.
Unbelievable. Yep. American ingenuity, baby. Ex-human. Yeah. Jeez. That's funny. That's cool. Guys keep going. I just need to take a quick break.
And I got a 9 o'clock I have to run for. So this has been great. Love you all and see you next time.
Okay, take care.
Likewise.
So here's a question I'll pose to you guys. Period figures. How would you find them? What type of like dress would they be wearing or clothing? You know, like what part of my thinking is getting 2 figures like in the cab on this engine that I'm working on. And I know, like, for example, the Woodland Scenics are dressed up in the caricature, you know, the overalls and the, you know, the kerchief around the neck and the hat and everything. But what would they be wearing in that period of time?
Bib overalls were much later.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you have some of the earlier railroads, they were wearing jackets with tails and top hats. Okay. But during our period, that would have, I mean, just look at some of the images at the Library of Congress, George.
Okay.
Or the books, because there'll be images of people out there, and they were working men, so they'd be wearing working clothes. Some might have a scarf, but that wasn't a regular thing. You know, be just as likely hanging out of a belt or something. There are a lot of good manufacturers out there for period figures. You can take some like the Prizer figures. If one has a top hat, you can that's a real easy thing to sand down to make it a lower hat, that might be more typical. You can take a thin sheet of plastic like evergreen styrene and a hole punch and punch a little circle out and sand the hat completely off a figure. Okay, so you're down to the skull. You put that oval on. Then you take another little piece of whatever diameter rod you're using, let's say 1/16 inch, and you glue it on that top of that, and so you got a hat with a broad brim. If you want a broad brim hat, Um, but
Okay.
there are a lot of different figures out there you can use. Some of the, oh, let me see if I can find that here. Knuckle dusters, slovenly Yanks. I'm trying to think of some of the, Andrew Statton, he makes really good figures.
Did you
And
mention Pfizer, DC?
Pfizer, yes.
They-
Pfizer,
They make,
Pfizer. I'm gonna get my second dose of vaccine this coming week, so Pfizer
That's
figures, not Pfizer.
Pfizer makes a good line of Civil War figures, men and women. You can get hats on Shapeways, derbies, top hats, straw skimmers. Let's see, what you think of as a cowboy hat, sombreros, all in several different sizes. And it's great to do. It saves a lot of the work you were talking about, but the disc and the dot and all that.
I'm just talking about, because I've got more of the materials than the cash to buy the materials, because the Shapeways used to be not that bad, but some of their prices just gone through the ceiling. It's just,
I've got a picture of a couple of Civil War era figures if you'd like to see them.
Sure.
Okay. This was
There
like,
are, I don't know about in HO, but in O scale, there's several guys that are now making heads, you know, with hats and different things. And you can chop off the head off of a figure. Just so you can get different styles.
well, this guy's obviously wearing kind of a flat brimmed hat with a vest. So is this fireman. And I got one other here.
and that engineer, that almost looked like a straw hat to me.
Could be. This was taken up in off the Columbia River. Here's another fellow. Looks like he's got a pith helmet on,
Almost, really.
but you can see he's wearing a coat or duster, plus a vest and tie, of course, as if the fireman's in his vest shirt sleeves. So anyway, there's a couple. I've seen them with top hats, as DC was saying.
Mhm.
So
You can also look at, you know, if a lot of paintings from the period will give you an idea of colors. Though, unless you're able to replicate some kind of, make a decal, some of those like dress and shirt patterns would be hard to duplicate, but give you an idea. Tom, you back with us?
Yep.
Hey, can you share that photo that you shared with me of the mill and the aprons you made for your figures?
Ooh. Let me see. Do-do-do-do-do.
Hey, Roger.
Modeling. Let's see if I got that in here.
George, I just posted on chat some figures that you might be interested in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm writing it down right now.
Yep. I think I have it maybe.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Did I get that? All right. Let me see. Pull
Hey,
this up.
David. Mr. Borkman,
Yes.
those Gandy Dancer figures, are they the ones that used to be produced, or are they currently available? Is there someone else who's taken up, or?
Yeah, that's it. I think they were older figures, but you can still find several listings of them on eBay if you look.
Okay. Well, I have a bunch of them, but yeah, I thought it was one of the companies. I think they were out of Minneapolis when I was a kid that have gone out of business. But yeah, they're nicely detailed figures.
Yeah,
There you
I do
go.
old age now, so I'm not really interested in those things and don't know how current they are.
Can you see that or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
There you can see right on this guy, there's an apron. Let me see if I can get a better one than that. Come in. Do 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 do.
Okay. Trivia question: what theme song was that? What show?
What are you talking about?
Would
I'm
you
trying to
just
play it
hum?
out.
Oh, okay. What theme song?
Yeah. Do 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 do.
I think I need a few more notes. I can name it in 20 notes.
I think it's from
Is that
Spider-Man.
Hawaii 5-0?
Oh, Spider-Man, right.
Was
That's-
it?
Why are you not coming up?
Here's a source for figures. I'll put it in the chat. I might use this one. It's called Fun and Games.
Oh, Alan Pollock.
Yeah. Scalefigures.com.
I was looking through some of his and he's had some good figures. I was trying to find somebody specifically for like an engine crew at this moment in time anyway. But he's got a bunch of good ones in his roster.
I think Andrew Stadler would probably be the best for this period. He's got some of the old engine drivers.
You said Andrew, what is his last name?
Staten.
Stadden.
Oh, I wasn't even close.
Those are great images. I mean, great figures.
They're metal, and they're really highly detailed.
Okay.
And I would recommend, you know how you're doing all the backhead detail of that engine? I'd recommend a figure such as that. Yeah, you were showing us that. I would recommend a figure such as that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I just typed up over the blue and over the boiler and the stripes and everything because I'm ready to shoot the black on it today. But yeah, I want to make sure that
Wow.
it's got, you know.
That's pretty damn good there, George.
You're going to want
Hope so.
quality figures in that.
Yeah.
Here you go. I think this might do it. There's the mill workers rolling some iron. And you can see there's aprons that I put on these guys.
Oh, wow.
I actually, can you see these tongs over on the right?
Mm-hmm.
I made those with just some brass wire because I ran out of tongs. So they're pretty easy to make.
Now, what figures were those to start with, Tom?
Let's see, we have musket miniatures. We have a Staten figure. And we have, I forget what this guy is.
Freiser or Merton, I suspect.
Yeah, that's a good guess. Right.
You know, another thing, George, is since the figures are indeed quite small, perhaps getting the sitting or standing, shall we say, body alignment that you are looking for, and then you can probably paint it almost any way. I do that all the time with soldier figures, and it comes out looking good.
Okay.
Are you talking about figures for your cab?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, since your cab is open, right? Ooh.
right. I was just trying to find something that looks more period appropriate because when I originally mentioned the comment was most of the oldest commercially available cab figures are the clownish caricature Woodland Scenics ones where they've got their, red and black, red and blue, or I'm sorry, red and white necktie and their chromer and their overalls and everything. And I was like, oh, I know that's not what I'm trying to get after. Because I realize I'm using this a little bit as a reference, but the Buster Keaton movie, The General, which is
Yes.
one of my favorites. He gets out of there and he puts on his coat and he gets down and he's got the little bolo tie and everything, and his nice little bowler hat or whatever. And I was just like, okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to be more appropriate for this. And so I was just trying to find somebody that made a decent looking figure that I could either modify or make, but had a decent starting place.
Yeah, if you want to modify, well, yeah, I mean, there's so many, because I kept the weights in my car, so I just would take a figure and I'd either cut off the right side of him so I could have his head and shoulders and left arm or right arm coming out of the window, and I would just glue it to the weight. And you can't really see too much inside, but since you have an open cab, as you know, modifying figures would be best if they were the plastic ones.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's, it's just a matter of how much carving and cutting you want to do. But to get somebody that short, I don't know. What do you think, DC? The Prizer? Maybe you guys have been talking about this already.
Prizer tend to be slightly smaller than like musket miniature figures.
Yeah, you don't want to use one of those. Yeah.
And but the Stanton figures are, if you can get a Stanton figure to work,
I'll have to look it up.
That actually puts more weight in the cab too, because they're metal.
Well, I found this set just looking here right now. There's a Heritage Models Gandy Dancers metal figures saloon types, and there's a couple of decent looking ones that are sitting. Maybe just take the beverage out of their adult beverage out of their hand and should be good.
No, I think you leave it in there. These guys were drinking, man. Absolutely. If you want prototype, you keep that in there.
Well, there's a couple on this one here that looks like this one might be a really good option.
These are Gandy Dancers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time it comes around, the train comes around the track, they're raising a glass to you, George.
I like it.
Gandy Dancer figures.
You did a great job with us.
Gandy Dancer. Wow, I don't think I've heard of those.
They're from back in originally, I think, in the 60s.
Okay.
I think they were produced down on Bryant Avenue, actually a few blocks from where I lived as a kid. Never knew about them. On Bryant Avenue South in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Trivia.
There's another one that's popping up here. It says Knuckle Duster. Looks like they're.
Yep.
Yep. Marty just returned about 30 figures I sent to him to paint, and those are fabulous. Gandy Dancers, Knuckle Busters. There's another one.
Let's see.
Figure.
Knuckle Dusters. Oh. Actually, there's, what's that company? Spyra Miniatures, is that the one I told you about, Tom?
Who?
Hang on a second. Okay. Spyra, Speira Miniatures.
Yes.
They're from England, I believe, and they make a lot of figures. And the cool thing is, you can order them in different sizes. They're 3D printed, but you can order them in different sizes. Now they're not cheap because they're printing an individual figure for you. Okay.
Is that the one that Bernie put out not too long ago?
Uh,
I don't know.
I came across them before Bernie, but yeah, I think Bernie might have mentioned them too. But
Did you get the name scalefigures.com, George?
hmm
Okay. There's a lot in there too.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen his. I know Alan Pollock. So I've looked through his stuff. I just didn't see anything that was immediately I thought would be easy to use.
Right. Right. Uh,
They got a station set over here also, a station passenger standing. It's tempting to buy.
I just posted the Spira. I think it's Spira.
Oh,
maybe
okay.
Spira,
yeah.
to the chat.
There was another one from a number of years ago, Thomas Figures.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes.
Thomas and K&L. Yeah.
K&L, right. Right. DC, do you have that in your list? Because I found this little catalog from them. I could post it.
Oh, you got a catalog from them.
I don't know.
Cool.
I just see a PDF. You want me to post it?
Back when I was started
Sure.
this, they were still, you could still order stuff from them. They were still in business. And it's one of the things, like I've tried to order one of everything they offered.
They're mostly, I mean, they're great for wargaming. They're mostly like very military, but if you want like
Yeah.
marching and what have you, they're very good. They're the right size. I've got a bunch of those on the layout.
Yeah. They're mostly combat poses.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if you would be able to modify them for
Not really.
a cabin crew.
Well, they
No.
had a nice desk set. So I just posted a picture of it. You're
Where?
right. They're all combat pictures. Hopefully it did. Did it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, desk set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So put that at work. But I think they had some, but you're right, it's mostly combat, but I think they had obviously Lincoln and Grants, those kinds of things.
If
Yeah.
you, well, now I guess would be
Oh.
musket miniatures if you want to
Yeah.
have cannon loads and stuff on.
Cool. Well, this will give me something to look for.
Yeah.
Oh, and a Civil War memorial, that's nice, if you look in the catalog.
Whose catalog, Vince?
Oh, the one that I just posted,
Oh.
Thomas, on page 2, he had a Civil War memorial.
Oh.
Probably pretty easy to make one, but although I guess if you're doing period, you wouldn't, well, you might have a memorial, right? It's fairly recent.
Oh, don't worry. If you put a memorial, somebody will try to come take it down.
That's right. I don't know. Kind of.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. I hate to do this. I got a bug myself. We've just found out, we realized last night we have an appointment to take my wife's car in real quick. So I got to be there at 11, which means I got to leave the house here in about 5 minutes.
Got it. Good to see you, George.
So, thanks, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend. Happy Easter, all that stuff.
All right.
Thanks for all the info, guys.
You're welcome,
Welcome.
George.
All right.
Bye now, George.
Bye-bye.
Cool. My list keeps growing. That's great.
Your list of what?
What to do. Amazing. So let's see. What else, guys?
Well, I'll share my current project here. So basically, what I'm doing is I like to scratch build freight cars and stuff. So I decided to 3D print some cores so that I wouldn't have to set the height of the roof or anything like that. It's got the angle of the roof built in. It's got some lugs on the bottom for the coupler pocket and the trucks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make resin copies of this. So I'll make a rubber mold and then I can make as many as I want
Wow.
without having to pay the 3D printing fees, which is kind of steep. But I
Oh,
had
so
the
you
first
had
one-
that printed?
Yeah, so I had the first one 3D printed.
Were those your drawings that they printed, or did you find that from Eric or somebody?
No, they were my drawings. Here, let me share it. So can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I went ahead and drew up ones for each of the Santa Fe's basic types of house cars. So I think there's about 8 or 10 um, between the different series of furniture and boxcars and reefers. And I allowed for the thickness of like the styrene on the sides and the floor material and the roof material. And you know, that's this way I don't have to worry about my frame not being square or anything like that. So
That's fabulous. And then you'll, of course, just make molds of as to however many you want.
yeah, so I can make a mold with the 3D printed master and then just cast as many as I want.
Nice.
Very good, Phil. Wow. Wow. You know what? I see a presentation down the future, DC.
Yeah. Be careful if you show pictures of your mom. Tom will see a presentation down the line.
Yes, sir. Well, you know what? I'll give you at least till the fall to have like one completely done with, you know, maybe 15, 20 photos of your process. That would be great to see that, Phil.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yep. Yep. See, I think next Thursday we have Fred Willis doing his thing on scratch building windows. So that should be interesting. And then I think after that, it might be Dave Schneider on researching Civil War railroads. And then the one after that might be George in his Bachman rebuild.
These are for the Thursday night sessions, right?
Correct. Right. Right now, we don't have anything really in the queue for us. So if if it makes sense, I mean, for me, I enjoy this. So if you guys want to meet again in 2 weeks, we'll just, have it be improvisational. And if there's something that, comes up where, hey, this would be a great topic, then we'll go into that. So I'm just going to keep doing these until maybe the summer when we might go to one a month. Yeah, so there it is. Cool.
Sounds great, Tom.
We were talking about loads earlier,
Yes.
and I've got a fairly typical one that should be done for be able to put together relatively easy. And let's see, machinery. During the Civil War, machinery was moved all over the place, getting out of the way of the damn Yankees or wherever. And these two cars here, the machinery is from, I believe it's American Model Builders. They had these designed as loads, come complete with the wood cribbing and the whole business. So I put them in a couple of flat cars.
Wow.
And now they're en route to whoever needs a steam engine. Wow. There's not much assembly to be done. If you glue wood together, you're okay.
So they come like that one that one right there,
Yeah.
that housing, that's all one piece?
The casting is all one piece, the green part. And then they give you wood to put up the cribbing. And inside the box here, there's some of the eccentric links, I believe, are in here. And then back here, you've got a couple of pulleys and looks like pillow blocks and a couple of power transmission wheels. Now this guy was a little more difficult. I built this from a picture, an 1870s picture. I had that in a newspaper article describing this big gear wheel that traveled from San Francisco up to Virginia City, Nevada. And the interesting part about this is that this flat car had the center cut out. So it was a well car. and the gear reaches just above the track,
How about that?
and the top barely clears
The tunnel?
the tunnel I've got. So it's slow order because it's obviously kind of top heavy. The worst part of the whole thing is finding a suitable gear. Nobody makes a model gear like that, so I found what was a solid gear and then cut out all the parts that weren't spokes, smoothed them over and so
okay.
on to get this thing.
Nice.
So it takes a little bit of work. Finding the gear was the hardest part.
Right.
And if you
Right.
ask me which one I got, it was a Boston gear, and that's all I remember.
Huh. By itself, you found that?
Yeah. But if you look through things, you might find something. The thing was getting the gear the right size with the pitch of the teeth being such that it would look realistic
Yep.
for an HO scale.
Right.
gear.
I can almost think of
A big watch.
a watch gear.
Yeah.
Usually they're thinner, but you just have to look around and see what you can find.
Right.
Okay.
So
Whose cars, flat cars are those, Don?
mine,
I mean,
well, no,
manufacturer.
mine.
You built the flat car?
Yeah, the parts for the flat car were all laser cut, and then I made a bunch of kits. So whenever I need a flat car, I put one together. I have some stake pockets and wheels and trucks, and you're in business.
How long are your flat cars?
30 feet.
30 feet. Nice. And those, the stake pockets, are they commercial?
Yeah, they're grant line.
Okay. And the brake, the brake,
Titchy. They make them specially for flat cars.
right.
It has this part and the staff and such.
How about the brakes on the wheels? The, what do you call those?
The trucks, these are Eric Cox's Allen trucks.
Oh, okay.
Again, for me, that was the kind of trucks that were in standard
like them.
use in my part of the country.
Right.
So that's why I was using those.
Those look great.
Thank you. But any any kind of flat car would do, just gets the machinery and it's on its way from wherever to wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Don, I was wondering on the that flat car you made. I'm sorry. The flat car you made would that have? I know you do a lot of research. Was that built specifically for transporting that wheel? I'm just looking in terms of whether or not the deck should have a leathered look or not.
Well, there's one picture of this that I've been able to find,
Okay.
and it's taken enough of a distance that it's. Well, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Are those holes, those 4 square dots by the brake wheel, are those holes for like stake pockets or for a,
For
yeah.
stake pockets. So yeah, those were mostly used when you were loading it up with firewood.
okay.
Might be able to find this quickly. Ah, here we are. I actually did, surprisingly. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me go to this other picture. There's the prototype. And these are just standard 30-foot Central Pacific flat cars that they modified this guy. And they have a little bit different kind of bracing than I did, but I, with lack of a clear photograph, I just did the best I could.
Nice. Now, what kind of trucks are those on there, Don, on that one?
Those are another type of swing motion trucks.
Okay.
See, the ones on the car in front of it are the Allen trucks.
Yeah.
This was a little bit later, probably could be a Kimball truck. They were a car maker in San Francisco.
Now, looking at the center of that truck, is there is that a wood beam that's in that box?
Oh, good question.
Okay.
But let me see something real quick here. I may have a better picture of that. Let's see if I can find just a second.
Can you zoom out on this a little bit?
Beg pardon?
Can you zoom out on this image a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just trying to get a look at the car to the right there.
Yeah, eventually I'd like to make these big beams. That's probably for a Cornish pump, but I'm not sure.
Almost looks like a top of a walking beam for a steam engine. You know, I mean, a steamship.
They didn't have walking beam engines on the Comstock, but they did have Cornish pumps, which took the same configuration. But I'm not sure. I haven't researched that particular part of it.
Is it an optical illusion, or does that car looks longer to me than the car with the width?
No, I checked it actually. They're all the same length. They're all 30 cars. I've got drawings of all these early Central Pacific cars. Let me show you this other picture. We're talking about trucks. I've got to push the right button here. There's the truck you were looking at. It's a swing motion truck. It's just a little bit differently arranged than the Allens.
All right.
And there's another picture of one. And what do they say? That's there's a for real one.
Wow. Okay.
In color. So you can get an idea. You can see the swing links up here.
Right.
So anyway, that's what that was.
There's oil leaking down from the journal.
Oh, yeah.
Onto the wheel, onto the rail, onto the tie.
On the early machinery, if there wasn't an oil leak, you needed to add some.
Question on that color of that car. It looks like the whole thing was painted that reddish color, or you think that's just dust and...
No, that's typical. Mostly the trucks were painted the same color as the car body.
Oh, wow.
So if it was
Okay.
a brown car body, you got brown trucks.
Right.
So it just was, it was the simplest, way for the car builders to go.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think there's different views around the trucks from the 1850s and 60s that they might have been painted or they might not have. So, I guess the more I would know about the W&A and what they did, because I have some of my trucks where they're actually painted the same color and some I just have black with a little bit of rust on them.
And they could have done it that way when they had more money,
Right. Right.
But I'm sure they were painted something, at least initially.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, they turn out to be bright orange.
Right. So let's see. Oh, do you know who makes a tunnel brake? Tichy or Grant? No. Okay. So you have tunnel brakes on your cars, don't you, Don?
Beg pardon?
You have tunnel brakes on your cars?
No, I don't think I have a tunnel brake on any of them. I might have a one or two, but generally it's just a stamp brake.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I'm putting a tunnel brake on the Adams Express, and I looked at a photo in White's book, and it looks like something I could just fabricate. It's just a couple of little braces onto the wheel itself.
What would you be using as the wheel?
The brake wheel?
Yeah,
Oh, one of my brake wheels.
because they seemed a little
Larger.
in diameter.
I think they were. Yeah.
If you're looking for a little bit bigger brake wheel, go to eBay. A Precision Scale sells a lot of their stuff on eBay.
Oh.
Who does?
And, they may have a wheel, it may be an O-gauge wheel you end up getting. Download one of their catalogs. You can download it from their website.
Yeah, I've got that.
And
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They give extra size pictures of the brake wheels.
Right.
So you might be able to find one that works, and download the O-gauge one too. Because if you can't find one big enough at HO, maybe you find a small one at O-gauge.
You might be able to also contact Bill over at BTS, see if he'll sell you
There you go.
one or two. He might have one or two that he's willing to part with.
Good idea. Put a note of that one. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Roger joining us again.
Well, no, I'm taking off the phone now, so I got my iPad going here.
Okay.
There we go. I'm leaving with my phone.
Hey, Roger.
There we go. Tis I. Now you can see me.
Yeah. The brake wheel, Tom, the brake wheel I was talking about from BTS is the one that they supply with their Georgia Railroad boxcar.
Yes. Right. Yep, because I've got a couple of those, and those. Right. So that's a good idea. I'll just give Bill a call and see if he's willing to do that. I know Rhett has asked him to do things like that before, and he just either doesn't respond or said no.
Well, he's very nice when I've asked him to do things.
Right. I think either Rhett hasn't purchased enough or his bedside manner needs a little fine tuning, one or the other. Oh, by the way, if anybody's interested, Lewis sent me an email. He's got a 5-pack of U.S. military railroad house cars that he wants to sell. So I told him, just post that with the group. But,
Are the arched ones or the peaked ones?
He makes U.S. military in both?
Who's selling them?
Louis Caputo.
And they're the BTS kits?
U.S. Military Railroad, yeah.
Yeah, he has both the peaked and the arched roof.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, he was wanting, he didn't have the trucks for him. And I said, well, I got trucks I could sell you. So I don't know. I don't need any more cars right now. I still got 2 5-packs to build.
That's all?
Plus, no, there's about yeah, for you, that's all. My God, you're going to be doing this in your next life, brother. So much. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I've got a boogie on for the afternoon. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming. And there'll be an invite for next time, next weekend.
This is what we call our Seinfeld episode show. We're doing a show about nothing. It lasted almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
it was good nothing.
Right. Good. Okay, guys. Great to see you.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
Easter.
Thank you all.
Happy
Easter.
Easter. Happy holidays.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
Bye,
Cece.
y'all.
Oh,
Hey,
Okay.
Roger,
Hey, yeah, DC.
when we were working on that track plan,
Yeah.
I tried to incorporate two curved turnouts. That's why I haven't
Curve
got
what?
curved turnouts.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yes. And I spent a few hours with that and
Ooh.
gave it up.
Yeah.
I gave it
Glad
up
you
because
did.
it was not coming out or saving any space. And
Yeah.
okay, so that's why you haven't heard from me. I was like, I got very frustrated. I said, I'm going to step back for a few days.
No, I thought, life struck. You got to do things, do it. And as I said, get to it when you can. I'm still right now. I'm wrestling with myself. I'm thinking about getting more of the Hornby switches because they are 6.5 inches long, which means that'll scrunch it in on the main line, that'll scrunch it in a total of about 5-6 inches. And that gives me better space on the outside. I might be able to condense it down to a 10-foot space for the island concept.
Okay. Well, I went to 10 foot 6 inches, but that only gives you 1.5 feet to get from one side to the other.
Yeah, but that's a lot of space, and I measured. Ever since you said, the junction on one side, the station on the other. Well, I remeasured an 18-inch curve on either side, including the station, and that's it comes out to the board needs to be 10 feet 6 inches. Now, put the Hornby in at least on the main line, and then you gain 5 inches either side. Oh, we're keeping Tom. We need to. We better go here.
No, I believe me. I got 2 more minutes, so you can continue. Go ahead, Don.
Hey,
Don.
guys, I'm leaving.
Okay. Take
See you,
care,
Don.
So that's why I'm still grappling with that issue. Well, thanks a lot, guys. We'll let you go. Boy, one of these days, Tom, you need to, I don't know if you've done it already, but you need to show your locomotives. Japers, Creepers, looking at those pictures back there. Your picture back there.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I love the Dr. Thompson. I was admiring that.
Yeah, matter of fact, I just realized it's reversed. I gotta flip that photo. Okay.
Did you angle the I forgot what they're called, the cylinders?
No, that's an illusion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm playing with the idea of angling the Mantua cylinder here. Right now it's not working very well. The River Rossi cylinder angles, it's just so much easier to deal with. And you don't have to worry about that back hook sort of thing that goes up and in so that the front rail by the cylinder stays there on the River Rossi. You don't have to worry about that factor. So you can just, all you have to do is angle the cylinders, fits right up in there, runs.
Oh, nice.
Runs as if you have straight cylinders. So I was just kind of wondering how that worked on the Mantua. I saw Al do it, one couple of those pictures in there. He had it. I was like, boy, I wonder how he did that.
Al did it, and LeBron has too angled it. LeBron Matthews.
Oh, yeah.
So we can get him on one of these talking about how he did it. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, mine was real simplistic, but it looks great. So, yeah, didn't bother me. the Mantua with the steel, well, the steel, whatever the crap they make about it. I'm wondering if that's going to be worse or no, or if and angling it correctly. The River Rossi, you can actually get the help from before you before you glue down the angle. All you have to do is attach the rod to the cylinder, and then is it straight? Good, glue. You know, and it worked out very easy, very simple. I was really pleased how it looked.
Yeah, LeBron and Rhett have had a lot of success with angling their cylinders with no problems on generals. So
On generals,
yeah,
definitely need to ask them one
Yeah.
of these times here.
good.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let me let you go. Okay.
Okay, Roger,
Yes.
you have a good
take it
day.
easy. All righty now. Bye bye.
See you
Okay.
later.
Take care, Roger.
Bye bye now.
Let's see. So
I thought it was really successful. Are you stopped recording?